Look at me now.
Peace, 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 everybody. It is the guy with the bow tie checking in with you live for another edition of Business with Benefits. To my right, you will see Neal Schaffer. How you doing, Neal?
Man, after listening to that music, I'm ready to dance, man. I'm like doing awesome. That's a
That's
great way to
my
do.
thing. I choose a song that kind of matches the topic. So since we're talking about influencers, I thought about Look at Me Now. The influencers are all about being seen and visibility. So I thought that'd be a good song for that.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know you, you're a Wall Street Journal bestselling author and great with social media. But for people that don't know that, kind of give them a rundown of who you are and what you know about.
Sure. Well, I'm a consultant like a lot of these listeners, right? I consult in digital and social media marketing. In addition to consulting, I've written a few books. I speak. I actually teach executives at a few universities, including Rutgers Business School back in New Jersey. And I help businesses and professionals in a lot of different ways. As a consultant, what I do is like a fractional CMO. So when companies don't have the marketing expertise, they bring me in and I work together with them, train their staff, build strategy, and help them in the implementation. So I do that for several companies right now. And I just recently released a book, actually in March of this year, called The Age of Influence, which is all about influencer marketing. And that's been my most recent thing in digital and social media marketing that I'm most passionate about, that I've been talking a lot about as well.
Perfect. I love it. And I want to make sure when we're talking about influencers, say thank you to hashtag Team Live, hashtag Team Replay. Let us know how you watch, and we appreciate it either way. And to catch up with the comments, we had some people jumping in already. We had Miss Rosalind saying she's Team Live. Thanks, Rosalind, for jumping in here out in Canada.
Nice.
Miss Pamela here with BCA B2B and Team Live. Thanks for jumping in. And then Deanna, she's Team Live also. Thank you for all the love. Oh, she said I'm late. we had a couple of technical issues, so we got late for a second. Thanks, Rosalind. So let's break down something real quick. So an influencer, I think people think when they hear that term, and this could be just me, but I think they think you have to be a Kim Kardashian, a Kanye West, like you have millions of followers. So what is an influencer in the world of social media?
Yeah, to be honest with you, a lot of people cringe at the term influencer or influencer marketing. And when I started getting asked a lot of questions from clients when I spoke, when I taught, I realized that there's this big interest in sort of influencers or influencer marketing. What can they do for my business? And as I did more research, reviewed more case studies, interviewed more people, went back and connected the dots of my own experience, I realized that this concept of digital influence, that's the heart of influencer marketing, has been around, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I even start offline. So when I do like social selling trainings for insurance sales agents, they talk about centers of influence. And I'm like, are you guys doing influencer marketing? They're like, no. Centers of influence are people in our community that if we befriend, we can actually get leads from, right? And find new business and help each other. And therefore, by engaging and influencing centers of influence, it's good for business. When I talk to real estate agents, they talk about spheres of influence, right? So it's the same concept, but very few people actually translate that to the digital world. So when you look at it that way, it just depends on who can help your business. And if you're thinking of those people that can help your business, are they online? What channels are they on? And how can you collaborate with them? So for some businesses that sell to teenagers, TikTok is probably huge. To other businesses that are B2C, they sell to millennials, Instagram is huge. If you're selling to businesses, LinkedIn is huge. Facebook might be huge, right?
Right.
For some of you, podcasting might be huge. For others, YouTube might be huge. So it doesn't matter what social network it is or even what content medium it is. It's all about who are those people that already reach a community that you want to speak to and how can you collaborate with them. So getting back to the definition of influencer, it's anybody that's built a community on any one of these social platforms. But in building a community, there's a really, really high chance that they're a content creator. They're podcasting videos, they're taking photos, or they're blogging, right? And that's really at the heart of it. And for people listening saying, I want to become more influential, got to become a content creator. But if you can't create the content, you can collaborate with those people and you can get a lot of business with benefits from doing so.
Thanks for plugging that in there. But I like that you said that is anybody that has access to a market you're not into, because I'm in insurance sales and we hear that all the time, do centers of influence and people like that. But often insurance people don't talk about social media. So I'm the lone guy out here making content out and things like that. And they're like, why are you making content? Because I have somebody reach out to me and say, hey, I want to get benefits, or hey, I have a question about this. So why do you think people just, is it because the media, because you hear influencer all the time with these TikTok kids and things like that, and is that the reason people kind of cringe when you say influencer when you're trying to do your work?
Yeah, I'm a big believer that that marketers and people in sales have just been misled, that there is this influencer marketing industry of talent agencies and fashion model agencies and influencer marketing agencies, and of course you have influencer marketing tools, you have influencer marketplaces, and they all talk up influencers, and from them, they want to sell these people, and the higher you pay, the more they make, so they equate it with followers. And it's
Mm,
very Instagram centric, by the way. So, hey, if this person has more followers, you should pay more money for them, which leads to people buying fake followers, right? Or it
right.
leads to fake engagement. And that's the whole problem. Even the influencer marketing industry, and the reason why I, talk about influencer marketing in this way is even the industry has over the past few years shifted to smaller is better. They talked about micro influencers only having 10,000 followers. And then over the last 2 years, they talk about nano influencers only having 1,000 followers. So at that nano influencer level, look around in your network, right? People that have 1,000 connections on LinkedIn, 1,000 followers on Twitter, 1,000 fans on Facebook, or 1,000 Instagram followers. There's a lot more people out there. And
Yeah.
chances are there are people that live in your community, that are in your industry. They may be in your company. They may already be customers that are already at that level that even people in the industry would consider to be influential. And that's, influence has really become democratized over time, especially after COVID-19. We're seeing a lot of marketing budget shift to these smaller influencers because they're real, they're authentic, right? They're relatable. And just those fake looking photos taken at an exotic travel location at the perfect angle, it's not realistic in today's age, right?
Mm,
And the whole reason why influencers came out is because we don't relate to content from businesses, we relate to content from people. So as a person, it's to your advantage to figure this out, but also to collaborate with other people that have already figured it out.
man, we just had a whole bunch of value delivered in a few minutes. That was awesome. No, because nano influencers have been something I've noticed, because a lot of people will look at people with large followings and say I can't do anything because I don't have the followership they have. But you mentioned something interesting, that they're more real and genuine, these 1,000 followers, because often when you get past probably 10,000, you start to have people that follow you just because you have an audience, but they're not actually engaging with you and saying anything. So for the person that is in that smaller space, what do you say is the sweet spot for people? Like if they want to have some kind of influence, is there a sweet spot, or is it more so the engagement's more important?
Well, they sort of go hand in hand. So there are ways of just following random people, and some of them randomly maybe following you back, but it really has no business value. So unless you're trying to build a following of people that might either become your customer or might introduce you to a customer, unless you can think of a reason to follow them. If they're a friend, that's great, right?
Right.
And maybe if you share the same passions, that's great. But here's the thing: once you build a following, you need to get that engagement, because the engagement will determine how much of your content gets seen by those people.
Mm-hmm.
So, I give examples like LinkedIn. Very early on in LinkedIn, like 12 years ago, the last time I worked in corporate, I was connecting with a lot of people in like recruiting and headhunters and stuff, right? Today in 2020, those people are not my target clients. There's
Yeah.
very little value, but the algorithm is still going to feed them content. They're going to bring my engagement down. So I'm a big fan of pruning my connections, of trying to weed out those irrelevant connections and to bring in new, fresh connections that are actually more relevant because they do what I do. And if they see the content in their feed, there's a greater chance they'll engage. You can take this concept to any given social network. I do it on Instagram as well. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I find people that I follow and they follow me, but that was like 7 years ago and they haven't posted in 5 years. So Instagram is still going to feed them my content, but I know that there's not going to be an engagement because they've checked out, and this
Yeah.
happens. People check out, they open up second accounts. I mean, who the heck knows? They change their name, but because that stuff happens, I think Instagram and LinkedIn are really interesting because right now those are the two networks where you can actually get the most engagement. But LinkedIn offers you a lot more with that, because just a mere connection request can provide that engagement. I mean, on Instagram, I guess you could, if you were to tag someone on a story, you can reach out to them in the same way, in a natural way. But the
Mm-hmm.
connection request, there's a lot that can be done just through the art of that, outside of the feed itself. And that's
Yeah.
really where there's a lot of power right now, I think.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Putting a note in the connection request is better than just sending the hi, hey, let's just connect. And catching up on comments real quick, Tamika in Brooklyn, New York, she said she's Team Live. I put, who's your favorite influencer? She said favorite in fashion and plus size with Paul C. Bronson's her favorite. Hey, Jordan Mendoza, thanks for jumping on, Jordan. Good friend of mine, helped me get into the podcast game.
Nice.
And Rosalind said you look like a real person. That's good. That we can take
So what
that
else
10
can I
different
do
ways.
here?
Yeah.
I'm trying my best. I got my drumsticks next to me. That's as real as it gets.
There you go. And she also says Sherry Jones is her number one favorite influencer on here.
So
Carl
here's the
said,
thing.
oh, go ahead.
I know. Well, I was just going to say. So I recently did a book giveaway, right, for the Age of Influence, and I asked people as part of like to get extra points. Who are your favorite influencers on Instagram? Who are your favorite YouTubers, right? And the answers were all over the place. So as you read through some of those people that influence them, they may not influence all of us, but that doesn't matter. That's why people have gone into niches and finding people that they really relate to in that niche, right?
Yeah, it's like Cher's in Canada, and I've found her through other content. But if you're not in Canada, you might not know who she is potentially.
But that person is still influencing a lot of people potentially, right?
Yep. And then we also got Mark Netry. He's great on LinkedIn as well. We got Jordan Mendoza. Tamika put Cher Jones and Nick Nelson. Nick's a friend of mine too.
Nice.
She said me, I'm Nano. She's a Nano influencer.
God bless the nanos.
So let's break that down. So let's say your business. In the book, in the Age of Influence, you mentioned a piece of employees being influencers. So let's talk about that, because some people on here probably have employees or they work somewhere that has a corporate structure. What does it mean when the employee is an influencer?
So when I look at influence, right, I talk about at the nano level, look around you. So the problem that a lot of people make is they reach out to people with like tens of thousands of followers, hundreds of thousands of followers that have never heard of you, right? And even if they respond, which most won't, they're going to respond by saying it's going to cost a lot of money to work with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
They see you as a dollar sign, like, oh, cash is coming in. But when you start with people that already like, know, and trust you or your company, you often don't have to pay for the privilege. And what I mean by this is who has the most brand affinity? Who likes, knows, and trusts your company the most? It's probably your employees.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a natural way. Now it's not easy. You need to create a program that there needs to be incentives. But if you have employees that are active in social media, how can we include them in our business's social media? This is something that we've been talking about for 5 or 6 years. There used to be a term called employee advocacy. And companies were using tools and wouldn't it be great? All you need to do is authorize your social media and you can automatically, share all this content. And the problem is we don't want to spam our friends, right? With like promotional content. And that's the mistake that I think companies have made. So what I talk about here is you have your employees, you have your customers, right? Maybe you have your partners. These are going to be your centers of influence. Maybe you have people that are following you or connected with you and you don't know why, but they're connected with you. They're following you. There's brand affinity there, right? You have a way to reach out to them and say, hey, since we're already connected, right? So it's really starting with these people, finding those that might be a nano influencer amongst them and seeing how we can leverage them. So for the employees, it gets to be a little bit challenging, but it starts with saying, hey, we want to rock social media. You're rocking social media personally. We want to rock it professionally. How might we be able to work together? And a lot of times it's letting these employees actually drive what you do on social, because in many times they actually do it better. They may be a better content creator than your business, right? They may have better ideas about how you should be doing it. And I think the more inclusive that you make your program and you begin to see that, I go back to that original statement that I said where influencers are content creators. Right. And generally speaking, they make better content than businesses in most situations, from my experience. So why wouldn't you, instead of thinking of them as, man, if they would only share this, new ebook or this new webinar or whatever, instead of how do we work together and collaborate more on content? I think that alone has incredible benefits for your company. And it could lead them in, if they're part of the content, obviously they would be more apt to wanting to share that content in social media as well. So I think that's an initial way of looking at it. I don't think you can force people to do it, but if you invest in it, right? So the whole concept of my book is investing in people, not like Facebook ads and LinkedIn ads. Right. And investing in people means finding different ways to collaborate with them, right? And the idea is that it's going to be a long-term ROI from you when you do that. So part of investing in people is actually providing them training. So I'm already starting to see companies train nano influencers, train them on how to write better copy, how to take better photos, personal branding, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the most successful employee advocacy programs have done the same thing. Then the employees actually want to take part of it because it's going to help them with their personal branding. Who wouldn't want, free social media marketing classes or free personal branding classes? It's a
Yeah.
win-win, right? It's a win for the company. It's a win for the employee. And it really helps to jumpstart just a new way of thinking about your social media marketing.
I like the approach you're doing because I often see companies will start to say, I'm going to have my 20-year-old daughter handle my LinkedIn and Twitter or whatever because she's on it all the time. Or I'm going to have my cousin that's a slick hotshot on this do it, but they don't work at the company.
Mhm.
So I often see there's probably a disconnect that you might see as well, that the content doesn't hit right or it's contrived because the person making it isn't in the shoes of that. So would you say that's a better strategy to have the people that actually do the work making the content versus a not random third party, but a third party doing that for them?
Absolutely. There's no doubt. I'm not saying you can't leverage third parties, but I remember there was like this huge electric power company on the East Coast that, brought in an intern to do their social media. And I think in the power industry social media circle, it's quite famous. But that person came on with, "Hey guys, want to let you know that I'm taking over the social media from now on. I'm looking forward to chatting with you." And there were like power outages going on, and there were customers that were complaining. Right? It was just a complete mismatch of the needs of the business with the needs of the users. Right? So
Mm-hmm.
you want to avoid that situation. And if you are going to use third parties, I mean, like I said, there are definite ways of doing it in content, and getting content that at the end of the day you revoice so that it's part of your company. It's a very savvy way of doing it. But I think, a lot of people look for shortcuts, right? We're all looking for
Yeah.
shortcuts. And like, if that company will do it for me, let's just throw it over the wall. And the problem is when you throw it over the wall, chances are you pay for what you get. And the end result is going to be something that's very cookie cutter, very vanilla, that doesn't really represent your company, and probably won't get the engagement you want from people in social media or the way that you want them to engage with you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to ask you a semi-controversial question, and guys, hit reactions for Neal because he's dropping some great value on everybody. Um, when you see there's so many social media marketing companies popping up, it's kind of like I see this thing leads. You get all these leads we get you, and it seems like it's like this fad that anybody can just make a social media marketing company. So, and I know you see this all the time because you're in the space, but how does somebody that's not trained, like they say, "Hey, I made a LinkedIn, I got a company, now I need to get marketing. Who do I find?" How do they vet a social media agency so they know they'll help them with the copy the right way? They'll actually help them make influence. Like, how do they vet these companies so they know who's good and who's not just a college kid making some extra money from Cash App or something?
Yeah, man, you're probably like me and you're listening to a lot of podcasts, but almost every podcast I listen to, at one episode, someone says fake it till you make it, right? But you don't, which is great if you're an entrepreneur, you're hustling. But if you're on the other hand, you don't want to work with someone who's faking it until they make it.
Right.
So, I think that you really need to vet them in terms of their experience. Do they have, experience in your industry? I think is a real key one. Can they really speak the speak and talk the talk? That's
Mm-hmm.
one area. The other area is, how is their social media marketing? And
Mm-hmm.
most companies really suck at their own social media marketing. So how can you convince me that you're going to do better?
Yeah.
The third one is, and I also have an agency because I consult, and then some companies like, we just don't have the resources. Can you do it all for me?
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in, it should not be black box. And if
Mm-hmm.
the agency is like, you just pay us money and we do everything for you, that's what I consider black box. You need to have a
Okay.
say. It needs to be a joint venture. And a lot of agencies don't want to do it because the joint venture means there's a lot of back and forth, and it takes up precious time and it eats away at their profits, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they just want to do here's the cookie cutter template. We give you A, B, C, you pay us D, and away we go. That's the sort of thing that you want to avoid, in all honesty.
Okay, and that's good that you mentioned that because you do see these programs. People post like, "Pay for my program, $500, and you get X," and that does seem kind of contrived, and it's not going to really get the results they need. And some comments that came from that too. That said, Carl said natural, so he said you're natural what you're doing.
Mhm.
Carolyn said, Neal, I don't like being offered stuff on IG. I
I
don't
hear
mess with
you.
Instagram, so I don't even know the sales tactic for it. Because for a brief stint, I tried to, and I was like, my audience isn't here, so I just stay on LinkedIn all day. And Tamika said good question, so thanks for that, Tamika. I want to ask you now. So influencer marketing, how valuable is that? Like, what do you think is a dollar amount if a person's looking at hiring somebody for that, like, or just in the market? Like, how much is influencer marketing help increase sales?
Well, here's the thing that I've come to conclude. So think about, as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, the different ways you can market your business. So chances are you have a website, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a website, you want to be found on Google. So there's this whole SEO pay per click that's still extremely important. You also have email, which is extremely important, and marketing automation and all that, which always delivers great ROI. This is stuff that we've been talking about in digital marketing for some time. And then you have that whole sort of content marketing, and the content feeds the SEO, the content feeds the email, the content feeds the social. So you always need to have content, and you can create special content for, webinars, events, or ebooks, or, we call them lead magnets, but to build up your email list. And then you have social media. And what's happened over the past 5 years, when social media first started and Facebook pages got wild engagement, everyone was like, yeah, this is word of mouth marketing on steroids. We're going to go viral on Facebook. And it just doesn't happen, especially today. For most businesses, social media has become pay to play, right? It just
Mm-hmm.
organic from your personal profile, fine. But from a business page, it just doesn't perform. But the problem is that, number one, organic socials pay to play. Number two, the algorithms favor people over businesses and always will. Number three, people don't like ads, right? And I mean, your ads might be effective on certain networks, right? But people are
Mm-hmm.
not on social media to look at ads. When they see ads on Google, they might click on them because they're used to seeing it. Social is a little bit different, and your ads on social media are not going to go viral. I don't see paid social media ads. I don't consider that social media. You're just leveraging a social platform to display your ads.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the last fact is that we as people relate and trust people like us more than businesses. It's just a fact of the matter. So, in order to be heard in social, you need to incite word of mouth. People have to talk about you. And the only way to get people talking about you is to collaborate with other people and let
Mm-hmm.
them do the talking. So if you believe in that, then you look at your marketing budget and go, well, where am I spending my dollars, right? Do I have any money allocated to this influencer piece?
Yeah.
And maybe it's, if you have a marketing budget, maybe it's 5% to start, 10% to start. It's almost like 10 years ago when people were just starting with social media marketing. They were asking the exact same question. First of all, I need to convince my boss. How do I convince my boss, right? The
Mm-hmm.
second is, well, where do I get budget? How much do I spend? And you're going to have to get budget from somewhere else. And you're going to have to measure how you do, just like you did with social media at the beginning 10 years ago. It's nothing different. I think that a lot of companies are taking budget from paid advertising, especially like, social media ads. Maybe take 5 or 10% and put that into a working relationship with an influencer. Now, at the nano level, you don't necessarily have to pay people like employees. If you do pay people, you're probably paying them for content, which you would need to create anyway, which you have to pay money for anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
when you look at it that way, I believe that the money you spend on influencers and the money you spend with influencers becomes more of an asset and less of just a mere expense. Now, there are some influencers that are, maybe at the customer level, they're not employees, or maybe they're outside of the customer sphere that say, hey, be more than happy to do this for you. Free product, free service is one that we hear a lot of. But outside of that, hey, other brands have given me a $25 gift card, a $50 gift card, a $100 gift card. I think at the nano level, you would never have to pay over $100
Mm-hmm.
for a single Instagram photo. But
Yeah.
if it's a blog post, if it's a video, it takes them more time to create, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on a lot of different factors, but we're not talking about thousands and thousands of dollars on one person with questionable results. That's why you want to start with the nano. You want to start with people that you already know. And like I said, you may not have to pay money for that engagement.
Yeah, and a lot of that you're mentioning can be repurposed. I mean, some of these small businesses might not have a massive budget, but you get one good, testimonial video from an influencer, you can repurpose that and use it over and over again. So
Absolutely.
it's just weird that like when my kids see me doing the show and everything, like they think my job is doing the show. And this is basically a 3-day. Well, this week has been every day this week, but usually it's like an hour a day. I'm doing this and kind of working on the show, but that has people talk, and that's the leading to it. So it's such a hard thing. I don't get why marketing people get that, make an ad, and it's great. But when you talk about social media and spending time there, they're like, oh, that's just That's just play. That's just fun. So are you seeing, because of COVID, I think especially we're more isolated than we ever been before. Have you seen
Absolutely.
a increase in people wanting to get into social because of COVID?
Oh man, my business, I'm gonna have my best financial year ever this year
Hmm.
because every business needs to figure out digital and
Yeah.
social. And there are so many businesses that have been so late to the game. Now they have no choice, right? You
Hmm.
need to have a digital first mentality. And what do people do when they're online? They're either searching, they're reading emails, could be texts, or they're on social media. So you need to be able to respond to that. You need to get out there. You need to have a strategy. You need to have a voice. And with social, you need to, like I said, incite that word of mouth through collaboration. So yeah, I mean, COVID has just accelerated, and I think it's accelerated influencer marketing as well, because there's only so much you can do.
Hmm.
You're one brand handle on social media. You're not going to get people talking about you. Even LinkedIn. I don't know if you notice this, but sometimes I post something on LinkedIn, like a link to one of my blog posts, and then LinkedIn will say, "Oh, this post already got 100 views. Make sure to tag someone or mention someone to get more engagement." When you collaborate with other people in social, you're naturally going to get more engagement for everything you do.
Right.
So based on all this, yes, what we see is the acceleration. And yeah, I mean, it's been great for my business, but for those that are still behind, I mean, they need to get caught up really soon, or they're going to be irrelevant.
Yeah, and that's the thing about this. There's a lot in social media changes all the time. I mean, LinkedIn probably has updates. I feel like monthly at this point where something changes with the app or the website. But that's why you get an expert to help with this, because it's just like regular marketing. It just feels different. That's kind of how I look at it. Like regular marketing had nuances. You hired a CMO for that, but for some reason people think, oh, my teenager can do my LinkedIn work.
Yeah, and I hear some people like talk about LinkedIn, like, well, if you publish more than you need to wait at least 3 hours and 30 minutes before your next post, or you need to engage, you need to comment like on the first 15 minutes. I think if you go overboard on the tactical technology side, you miss the point. Because if you're
Mm,
building real relationships and you're creating great content, you're going to get it's going to work, right?
yeah.
It's the people who don't do that, who look for the shortcuts, look for these tactical things. And even if they do get engagement or impressions, often it's meaningless. There was a guy on a webinar I did 2 days ago, and he got like hundreds of thousands of views on LinkedIn video, but it led to no business, right?
Hmm.
So you can hack things, but it doesn't mean it has business value. I know people love to see lots of likes and lots of followers, but there's a lot you can do with just 1,000 followers. I mean, imagine if all 1,000 of those people were locked in and loved
Yeah.
what you did and commented all the time and engaged and introduced friends to you, and that's really powerful.
Yeah. And then Carl said he agrees to that. Rosalind said, I want money because she's a nano influencer. So someone needs to pay Rosalind to be an influencer. And she said, COVID-19 and Sherry Jones led me back here. And Carl added, LinkedIn's on fire right now. So, I mean, I've noticed
Amen.
the the viewership is on some stuff, because I have a decent size following just like you do, but I noticed the views have changed recently. And I knew when COVID hit, I kept saying the content war is about to happen. This is about to be the content war. So I've noticed it's gone down. But much to your point where you said the hundreds of thousands of views with no business, I've seen more people actually ask questions actively, like, hey, I like this, when I ask a question about this. Hey, I want to have a Zoom call with you. So what's a good like percentage you think people should look at? They want to kind of know their numbers. What do you think their engagement rate should be? Because you hear all the time, I want to have a high engagement rate. What is a good engagement rate you think for people that are actually generating business out of LinkedIn or any platform for that matter?
Yeah, so the way that algorithms work is it's completely different for your audience and my audience, right? First of all,
Yeah.
everybody has a personalized algorithm, and they have
Mm-hmm.
a personalized relationship with you based on how much they've engaged with what type of your content. So the only way to look at this is take a look at your last 10 posts. Well, your last 10 posts that you published maybe more than 24 hours ago.
Okay.
And look at the number of impressions you got, and then look at the number of comments you got, or look at the number of likes you got or shares, and look at the traffic. If you use a Bitly link, you can find it easily. Otherwise, look at on your Google Analytics and put all these things together, and you'll create an average. You'll create a benchmark, and that is your average. And therefore, if you can keep that average going higher and higher over time, then obviously you're going to get more and more engagement. So for some companies or some people that have done it all wrong and they're just starting, that engagement rate of like, say, likes per impression is going to be very, very low.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, the number of impressions are going to be really low, right? But generally speaking, the more engagement you get, the higher the impressions go. But that's really the first step, is to have what I call a data-driven approach. You need to understand what works and what doesn't work. So on my podcast, I look at my numbers. Like every week when I publish a new episode, I go in and I look at what's changed over the last week, what episodes are more popular, less popular, and I see trends. Like when I talk about Instagram, there's a lot of people who tune into those, right? It's seeing things like that in what you publish that give you better ideas how to optimize, and therefore get better and better engagement over time. I know you're looking for a shortcut answer, but
no, that's good.
But
It's
on the other hand,
like you said, it's not a set number. Everybody's different.
On the other, post the same thing on Facebook with the same number of followers, the same thing on Twitter with the same number of followers, and see what you get, and you'll see a very, very different result. Obviously, Instagram, you might get a lot of engagement. You're not going to get any clicks, obviously. So, and you might get more impressions on LinkedIn than you do on Instagram, frankly. So that's why the LinkedIn engagement is already up there. I'd say in advertising and marketing in general, there's like this 3% rule. Like you might get 30% opens on emails, but if you can get 3% click through, that's great. When you do like Google ads, man, if you get 3% click through on Google ads, that's awesome. Maybe the number goes down to 1%, and maybe it's the same for social. So if you're getting between 1 to 3% engagement on your posts, if I was to give you a ballpark number, I'd say you're doing pretty good. Okay. So if you have 1,000 connections and you're getting, between 10 to 30 engagements, so you add up your likes, your shares, your comments, that's pretty good.
And this led to a question from Deanna. She said, when it says in LinkedIn to mention someone to get more engagement, what does that mean and how do you execute that? So we'll give a quick 101 for that.
Yeah, so you're basically just tagging someone. You're going in, you're editing what you published, and you're adding someone relevant. So if it's an interview with someone, obviously you should be tagging them, right? If you're sharing content that someone else created, you should be tagging them, via so-and-so. If not, it's like, hey, friend A, friend B, Mary, John, Janice, Jennifer, Joseph, I thought you might be interested in this article. It might just be tagging friends in that way. Now, some people like to get tagged, some people don't. So you want to be careful there. But it's just trying to find someone that might be interested that you can tag and expose the article to, in hopes that then that person engages. So you want to be a little bit careful. But if you can tag the content creator, that's obviously, or whoever is mentioned in the post, that's obviously the easiest way to do it. Yeah,
don't spam everybody. I might do things of like new connections. I'll say, hey, you might not have seen my show before. Tag them on that just to get them introduced to it. And Pamela said, great advice. So thank you for that. So Neal, we got The Age of Influence is the current book. Are there other books you want to let people know about? Because being a Wall Street Journal bestseller is not a overnight thing. You've obviously written other books.
Yeah. So I've been on LinkedIn like since way back when. So I have 2 books that I wrote about LinkedIn back in 2009 and 2011. So I'm not sure. Obviously, some of the stuff has dated. My 2011 book is called Maximizing LinkedIn for Sales and Social Media Marketing. I believe there's still a lot of evergreen content there. In 2013, I published a book called Maximize Your Social, which is how to build a social media marketing strategy. And although there's a chapter on Google Plus that you can completely ignore now, I do try to focus on the concepts that are evergreen. So I think there's obviously still a lot of value in that book. The Age of Influence, which is this book right here. This one just came out in March. This is all about this concept of digital influence we've been talking about. And I'm already working on my next book about this sort of post-COVID-19 digital marketing, which is going to include the ingredients of like influence, of social media, of content, and a lot of the things we've been talking about. That's still in the conceptualizing phase. So, the latest book's going to be The Age of Influence. But if you wanted to go one back further, I'd recommend Maximize Your Social, unless you're like a total LinkedIn freak, in which case you want to check out Maximizing LinkedIn for Sales and Social Media Marketing.
Read all of them, right?
There you go.
And Deanna said, thanks for that. And Rosalind said, yes, as Daryl knows, I always tag someone relevant. So Rosalind is good at tagging people.
And this is, they're all available on Amazon and everything, but this is what Maximize Your Social looks like.
Yep. And then she said, I tag Daryl when it's relevant. Yeah, she does tag me. I appreciate that for that. And then Carl had a thumbs up, Google Plus. I tried to make Google, when I had a blog for a little while, I was always using Google Plus as a conduit to keep my blog posts, but then it just went away, so I stopped using it. So Neal,
that's the thing. The networks change.
Yes.
And if you focus on relationships and collaboration and content, you don't need to fear changes in the algorithm. You don't need to fear changes in social networks. And that's the key message. Because hey, I had like 50,000 followers in Google Plus. What value are they to me now, right? I I generated a lot of traffic from something called Stumble Upon back in the day.
Oh, I
What
remember
value does
that.
it have for you now, right? They change. You got to move with it. And the great thing is, those of us that are in social media marketing, we know how to pivot. We know how to hustle, and we've had to do it for the last decade. So when coronavirus came around and we need to pivot again, for us, it's a natural. For a lot of businesses that aren't active in social, they're freaking out. They don't know what to do, right? So
Yeah.
I think learning how to pivot in terms of social media is a great, business skill to have.
Oh yeah, because you never know. I mean, TikTok is looking like it's about to be on its way out. So all the people that are on TikTok are going to have to figure out somewhere else to go.
Yep.
And Donovan put an amazing show. Thanks, Donovan, with the
Thanks,
Post
Donovan.
Meridian. Linda Ray said, my favorite subjects, insurance and social media. There we go, Linda. So if people want to learn more about you, Neal, where should they go and what should they do?
Well, my latest book is The Age of Influence, so check that out. My name is, well, I believe it's on the screen here somewhere. So it is Neal Schaffer. I am the real Neal. And yeah, there you go. So it's nealschaffer.com. It's Neal Schaffer everywhere on social media. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And I also have my own podcast for those podcast listeners out there called the Maximize Your Social Influence podcast, if you want to learn more about this concept of digital influence and how to apply it to your business.
I'll put that up on the screen for folks real quick. There we go.
Thanks,
Maximize
sir.
Your Social Influence podcast. I am seeing them behind the scenes whenever I disappear. But last thing real quick that Linda added in there, so true. People are too obsessed over the metrics versus just showing up consistently, develop relationships.
Amen,
Linda
Linda.
nail on the head. It's easy to fall victim to the vanity metrics. It's super easy. But I know a friend of mine, Ronald Richards, he says, I don't care about the metrics. I just want to make sure I make relationships. So Neal's the expert on that as well. Make sure you're doing what you have to do to make relationships here, because honestly, LinkedIn, you don't get paid for posting content. For people that don't understand that, Instagram, you can get paid for it. YouTube, you can get paid for it. LinkedIn is just you make relationships from the content. So anybody watching this, Neal and I don't get a check from LinkedIn for having 10,000 views for something. Like that doesn't happen.
But here's the thing. I get offered like, a $25 Amazon gift card for posting something on Instagram. Whereas if I make a relationship with someone on LinkedIn, that could lead to thousands or tens of thousands of dollars of business. Yes. It's just, you cannot, they're not equal by any means. So you just got to put it all in perspective, people. And if you're in sales, you already have it in perspective. Just don't go down these weird like alleys where other people try to call your name. Hey, TikTok. Hey, Instagram. Just, stay focused. Stay focused on your business and on the relationships, but try to better translate what you do offline to what you can do online. I think that's the real message today.
Oh, I like that. That's a t-shirt right there. Translate what you do offline to online. T-shirt moment. Well, Neal, thank you for joining me. I know you had electrical work. I had a storm coming to my area. So everybody out there, please stay safe, wash your hands and all that good stuff. And please early vote. If you're worried about the post office, this is my political plug. Go do it. There you go. Neal got the mask there.
Mask up, everybody.
Mask up, and then early vote in person. If your state is one that you're worried about, the post office being destroyed, early vote in person. I'm going to say that every episode until November 3rd. So thank you folks for tuning in. It's important. My kids will ask me, what did I do to help with this, everything going on? So this is what I'm doing on my show. I will talk about it. So please, folks, be safe, be healthy, and we will catch you next time. And last thing, make sure you tag someone. If somebody needs help with social media help, tag them on this video or share it with them. Neal's a great guy and down to earth, so reach out to him. There's not many Wall Street Journal bestsellers that are real and honest with you like that.
And one last thing, since we talked, I don't really get political and stuff, but on Instagram, in the middle of Black Lives Matter, when people are posting just black screens.
Yeah.
This is my best performing Instagram post ever. It's a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. So let that guide us in today, in the elections and beyond.
Absolutely. I love it. This has been a big political week. So please, folks, and I see Carl put up their mask. Thank you for that, Carl. And I will catch you guys next time on Business of Benefits. We'll see you next week.
Good luck, everybody.